love, but also donations of people's time and money. We're a largely volunteer-run collective, and we're so happy to be welcoming you both to celebrate your new book, Gloriana Presente, especially as we creep toward the new school year.
Summer ended fast.
Yes,
it crept up on us.
Blink, yes, yes. And time goes fast with little ones too, so I hope you really enjoy this book. We normally do a song when we have slightly older kids, and I go, if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. And then we do all sorts of things.
That is so cute.
And we normally do all sorts of things, but today I think we'll just skip all the preamble and welcome Elisa Reynoso Morris, yes, and Doris Rodriguez, our author and illustrator of this wonderful new book in both English and Spanish. I'm not dramatic at all. You are an Afro-Dominican and Puerto Rican author. You've done all sorts of things. We have another copy of an earlier book that you did, Látanos Our Love. Doris, you've done a lot of stuff.
Still do a lot of stuff.
Yes, still do a lot of stuff. And you're a painter, you are an illustrator, you have a rich background in the arts, and you can feel it in the book, you can feel it in the illustrations, the love of it. I hope you all really enjoy the story. I'm going to stop talking now, and yay!
Okay. Awesome. You didn't see that one? You want to say a couple things? All right. So before I jump into the reading, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of the inspiration of it, if that's okay. And just a fun fact about how publishing is weird. So this is actually the first book that I wrote where I felt like maybe I can actually do this for real life, you know? Even though it's my third book to get published. So publishing is weird. You can write the most amazing books, and it just depends on like what the publisher, what the editors, what the industry wants. And it just so happened my first book, Látanos Our Love, was what they were looking for at the time, so that one sold first. But this book was the first book where I was like, you know, maybe I can do this. I wanted to be an author since I was 7 years old, but then I did a bunch of other stuff because being an author felt very elusive. Like it just felt like something that only old white dead men did, you know? And so I did other stuff, and I traveled the world, and I'm glad that I did those things. But after writing the first couple drafts of this book, I was like, you know what? I think I can make 7-year-old Alyssa's dream come true also. So this book is inspired by my own experience learning English and being an English language learner. So it's really near and dear to my heart. So if I cry, I'm just going to blame the pregnancy hormones. But it might not be the pregnancy hormones. It's because this story is very near and dear to my heart. And because it's really the story that helped me realize that I can one day be an author. And that part of my life is still very surreal. So just want to share that.
Can I share
Claro.
a little bit?
Claro.
So I've been an illustrator since I graduated from college, but just like you, I got busy I have my daughter, I was raising a family, I've always been a teacher, art teacher, and I moved to Miami for some years, and when I came to New York, I get an email. Somebody's looking for an illustrator. I'm like, I've been illustrating working years, where did this come from? I don't know. I get a lot of emails that are like,
Yeah.
they're not true. And I answer it, and soon enough, I'm illustrating. So you created this opportunity for me again, and I'm illustrating other books now. So, but to tell the story about this book, I was teaching in the Bronx at the time, so this book is my community in the Bronx, my school community. This book, the children are inspired by the students that I was sitting every day with them. So, all the movement in the story, because Abuela is moving around the streets, are my commute from and to work, and going to the bodega and seeing the cats everywhere. So this book is a testimony. It's like, it is kind of like a visual diary, what I will of my experience with my students in the world.
take turns?
Yes.
All right. We're going to jump in. You want to share the same group? Okay, I'll read and then you read. Okay, because I get winded.
Want me to hold it for you?
Today is my first day of elementary school. Abuela dice, no te preocupes, Gloriana. To ease my mind, she tells me a story of our family island home in La República Dominicana. And let me tell you guys, I didn't send you any pictures of my abuela, but somehow that looks exactly like my abuela. So when Jessica's our editor who connected us, when Jessica sent over the pictures, I was just like, how the heck did she do this? This is amazing. So, yes, that's la abuela.
On our island, the tall trees dance con el viento. Filling my basket with mangoes, aguacates, and cocos, he says, I sheen and shake like the trees to bachata music. I say, baila, baila, baila.
And in case you miss it, the bodega cats, right there. They're the MVP of the story. As las montañas reach for la luna, the wind whistles a song, abuela says, like a wolf, singing canciones de amor to the moon, I say. And I'm from my Mongo now. Anyone familiar with that area? So there's like mountains everywhere. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, in my boat! That's where my family's from.
The ocean waves sing your number and tickle your deditos, abuela says. I giggle and whisper, Gloriana, 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 as we surf the city beaches below us.
Abuela's story frees the mariposas in my nervous stomach. They flutter away con la brisa. Ya ves, abuela says, you're going to have a great day. So raise your hand if you remember your first day of school when you guys were younger. Were you nervous? Yeah. And even like, I still remember, even if it wasn't like my first day of school, just like my first day back was always nerve-wracking. Like, is my teacher gonna like me? You know, like, am I gonna make friends? Am I gonna know anyone? So, those are all the things that she's like struggling with.
But when I walk into the classroom, abuela's soothing voice is gone. The peaceful playas recede, and suddenly I'm drowning in a sea of new places.
The mountains crumble, the tropical trees wither away. La música from our isla have been replaced with words and phrases I don't understand.
Mr. Dissolvos takes attention. When he comes to my name, Gloriana, I open my mouth to say, I'm here. But las palabras hide in the back of my throat. I don't want anyone to stare at me.
He calls my name again. I close my eyes and picture the ocean waves on our isla llamándome. Finally, I let out, Presente. Mr. DeSalvo smiles and proceeds to the next name. This is probably one of my favorite spreads. And I'm glad that they sneak peek that they put it on. Oh. I like the effect of that. Like the little like peekaboo surprise. You did such a good job on that.
During recess, I jump rope by myself. 1, 2, 3.
Want to play tag? Charlie asks. I want to howl see. As proudly as the wolves that sing to the moon. Instead, I mutter a soft sure. But Charlie doesn't hear me. Donna and Kayla are waiting behind him for an answer. Yet I am frozen. A silence montaña. Eventually, Charlie and his friends walk away. You can relate to that. I was that kid that was like very outgoing in certain settings, but I like when I was first meeting someone, I would just like freeze, like paralyzed so bad.
Back in the classroom, Mr. DeSolvo puts a math problem on the board and gives us a few minutes to solve it. Then he goes around to check our work. Gloriana, can you share your answer? I look down at my desk and I feel myself shaking.
He says, don't be scared. You have the right answer. I think about los árboles altos bailando, but I cannot shimmy or shake off my fear. Mr. DeSalvo gives me a sticker and moves on to someone else.
On the walk home, Abuela asked about my day. I felt like my lips were super glued. I couldn't speak, and I didn't make any friends. I explained.
When I first moved to the Bronx, Abuela says, I miss mis amigos y mi familia. I felt alone, stuck in the eye of un huracán. I would try to speak up, and then my voice was swept away. Pero las palabras came con el tiempo. And the bodega cat.
Every time I think about our isla, my stories flow like waterfalls, I say. Sí, because you feel at home there. Con paciencia, you will feel comfortable in tu escuela, and the words will rush out as long as you don't give up.
That's the most important thing. Don't give up. Several weeks later, my teacher says everyone has to speak in front of the class and talk about their homes y familias. When he asked for a volunteer to go first, I force my hands up high. My heart beats like a tambourine, and I feel as if my mouth is full of sand. I'm scared, but I want to be brave like Abuela.
I close my eyes and take a deep breath, exactly the way Abuela does when she is choosing her words. Then I open my eyes and begin. There is an isla far away,
full of musical forests, I say as I sway from side to side. Tall trees shimmy and shake in the sea breeze.
there are massive mountains. The wind howls through them and it sounds like wolves singing love songs to La Luna, I say as I make myself mighty.
Oh! I cry out, and my classmates join me. The ocean waves sing your nombre and tickle your toes.
When I finish my story, the whole class cheers and chants. Gloriana, Gloriana, Gloriana. Can I be a wolf too? Charlie says. Can you show me how to dance like trees? Donna says.
See, yes, I exclaim. Maybe one day my friends can dance and howl all the way to la República Dominicana. The end. So yeah, this story, it was a lot of fun to write. I loved being able to incorporate as much Spanish as possible. That was one thing that I remember being nervous about, because when I was in critique groups writing the story, a lot of my critique partners were like, "Ay, that's too much Spanish, that's confusing, that's this, that's that." And I'm really glad that my editor actually, well, our editor encouraged it. She was like, "No, this is beautiful. Like, it flows, it makes sense in the context, even for non, Spanish speakers, based on the context clues, they should be able to figure it out. And I was like, thank you for believing in the vision. Because this is how I feel like most of us talk these days. It is very Spanglishy in the way that we carry conversation. So it felt the most natural.
But also teaches empathy, because the non-Spanish readers will feel like Gloriana, like, what is this word? What does it mean? So, it will be like giving people the experience of what it is to struggle with a foreign language as well.
Right. Anyone have any questions?
Did you get rid of the critique group?
Oh, yeah. So, and here's the thing. I feel like most of us know, like, writing can be very isolating, and it's hard to find the right group. So when in your journey, you're gonna be a not so great critique group, and then you'll eventually find your home, and you'll find your people. But yeah, this was one of the earlier critique groups, and I was like, I need more brown folks in my critique group, because I ain't getting it. Like, no offense, but it was a lot of trial and error. So yeah, I did. I look back on that now and I was like, oh man, the things we go through for our art and our love and our passion, it has its ups and downs, but it's worth it in the end. Yeah.
No one else has questions?
And we're bilingual, so we speak Spanish.
Did anyone feel represented by the character in the book about her experience?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
How long you take to write the book, and how long you take to illustrate it? Because
good question.
The writer
Yes.
is the illustrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one it was my first book where, like, I actually was learning how to write a picture book, because there's a very specific format. So it took me a long time, not just because of the story, but because I was learning how to write appropriately for the industry. I was learning how to format it for an editor, for an agent. I was learning the process. So it took about 3 years.
Okay, it's amazing.
Yeah, it took a long time. And then after the 3 years, it took like a whole nother year working on it with my actual editor after she acquired it. So 3 years independently, and then with my critique groups, another additional year with our editor, Jessica. And then at that point, it gets passed on to the illustrator.
Okay.
So I get the first contact, which was through email, and then from there we have a conversation with Jessica and then a
Yes.
team. Then I get the manuscript. With the manuscript, there's notations, like they will say this page, the character is, well, there was a lot of things that I changed as we started doing sketches. So we get the first round sketches, then the sketches come back to me. There's a whole round of corrections.
Yeah.
I remember one of the corrections was that I had a lot of close-up portraits, and they wanted to see more, environment.
Interesting.
So that was one of the first that I can remember. There's a lot of close-up. And then, because I'm a portraitist.
Yes.
I love faces.
Right, that makes sense.
So that's when I started, like, although it was in the story already from the sketches, then I started seeing where I am. I'm in the Bronx. I am there, right? So I started taking pictures, sketching in the street, look around, look for a street, going to the bodegas. I see the cats everywhere, and I'm like, that's going to be a character in the book. And so that's one of the pages that is like completely mine. When I come back and I put the pictures of the Bronx and the cats are inside of the store, and they are looking at the main characters outside, right? Also, I want Abuela to be active. I want Abuela to be, jumping with Gloriana. I want Abuela to be shaking with her. Like, in one of the images, they wanted Abuela to be sitting down on the bench, and I'm like, no. Abuela is jumping with Gloriana.
Activa.
Like, there's a hopscotch. Yeah, and it's like Abuela is sitting down and Gloriana is jumping. I'm not. Abuela is playing. That would be me. I would be playing.
I'm like, not if she's Dominican.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Abuela's grandmother, they are clean.
Right.
Music, jumping. Abuela is playing with Gloriana. Abuela is confident, but she's also a playmate, right? There was an issue that I, in the first page, it was just Gloriana and Abuela, but I want to go with Gloriana and family. So I kind of like have a story, but there's a new baby in the house, and that's why mom cannot bring Gloriana to work. There were two other characters, it was father and son walking out of the room because I wanted to have a complete family, but the characters were removed because they didn't see them again in the story. Maybe if I had like a celebration coming back from school, but I couldn't fit these other characters. However, there's a lot of members of the family that are not in the picture, but the plates are here. Yeah. So that is not there. Also, that is here. Like in the pictures of the family, there's like a whole structured family that is not in the story, but they exist. There's dad, there's a younger sibling, family portraits in the art, todo mundo junto, pegado. So I wanted to give Gloriana sort of like a background that is not really in the story, but the children go back, because the illustrator have to create a story that the children always come back and find something different. Yeah. And when you look at the book with another context, like the child will be like, Gloriana doesn't have a daddy. And then they will come back, oh, but there is a daddy. And look, there's an empty seating there. There's more members of the family that are not actually in the drawing, that Gloriana has a new círculo familiar. For me, that was important too. And I don't know what else to say. The school. When I make the sketches, or when I painted the book, it was 2020. We're teaching with face masks. Yes. Children were separated. So the format of the classroom here, it's like they are individual setting because that's what we're having. And I thought about putting somebody in a mask just to give like a hint. But then I said, like, I'm going to keep this out of the picture. But also I want to kind of like, there's a lot of everybody with masks. So that's why you see the seating, everybody sitting apart from each other. But I put it like that because that was the moment that I was creating this book. That was the reality then. Otherwise, if it was just going to be a year like today, they will be sitting in groups, right? Yeah. But because I didn't put any masks, but I just show what was happening in the classroom at that time. And I didn't really draw my students for respect of their privacy, but I use them as an inspiration. Like you see the classroom here. This one here, this is the way I see the Dominican Republic. When I think about Dominican Republic, this is what I see. And this is like, the one in the very corner is the countryside where my father grew up in the mountains, and they grew up a lot of tobacco there, and they have like la chocita para secar el tabaco, eso lo ve aquí, y esa es la playa que yo iba donde chiquita. Entonces yo puse el jardín de mi mamá, las flores que le gustaban a mi mamá, la música, todo es como yo, si yo cierro los ojos, eso es lo que yo veo de mi mamá.
And to add to that, when I first saw the illustrations, I knew we made the right choice with Doris, because the way that it usually works, from the author standpoint, you send over the manuscript, and depending upon the editor, sometimes you can suggest who you want to work with. But it depends. Sometimes a publisher is like, they don't want your input at all. Fortunately, Jessica was wonderful, and we put together a list together of illustrators that we wanted. And I'm glad that she had suggested you, because I feel like someone else wouldn't have gotten this. Like my book, Platinum Star Love, my illustrator, she's not Dominican, but she did an amazing job on it, because the book was more kind of like Caribbean and not specifically Dominican, whereas this book was very specifically Dominican. And so I'm so glad that you're who we went with, because this is also what I see when I think of DR. Not all of it, specifically, but like the hibiscus flowers and the butterflies and the cocoa, it was like, oh my gosh, like it's like you were reading my mind, but better, because those images I had were like not as cool because I'm not an illustrator. So to be able to write it and have a visual, and then have an actual professional illustrator bring it to life and exceed your expectations is just super cool.
And how much were you guys able to collaborate? And have you guys ever met before today in person?
No, it's the first time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I know you.
Right. Whatever. So I'm a rule breaker in certain contexts, and they tell you you're not supposed to talk with the illustrator. They tell you you're like, and it makes sense because they don't want the author being overly prescriptive. They don't want the author to impose too much on the illustrator.
Micromanage her.
Right. Micromanage and stifle their creativity. So I totally get that.
But
I like to make myself accessible. So, you know, I did reach out and we started talking on Instagram.
Yeah, when I reached out, I was like really scared. I felt like I was doing something really wrong, and I'm
It does feel that way.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send her a message. I'm like, hi. And there was like a time that I really wanted to tell you stuff that, like feedback that I was getting from people, and I really want to share because what happened is I shared not the actual finished book, but I shared the book with 2 colleagues in my work, and they just started crying. And one of them said, this is the book I needed when I was growing up, right? And I really wanted to have like this conversation, but I knew I wasn't supposed to, so I sent a message. And then from there, we started like contacting each other, but respecting the fact that we couldn't discuss
En condea.
Exactly. It was just like a friendly,
Right.
like following each other, but we're like flirting with each other, not really getting married. Until today, that we actually are able to really tell our stories.
Right. And meet in person. So, and you're actually the first illustrator I've ever met in person that I've worked with. So
You are the first writer I ever met that I worked with.
look at that.
So
It's very uncommon because for Platanos Are Love, my illustrator lived in Trinidad and Tobago. Now she's in Germany. So like we never got to meet. We've done like FaceTime, you know, but that's it. And then my illustrator for The Bronx Is My Home lived in Virginia. We were supposed to do an event together, but then life be lifing, so that didn't get to happen. So I was like super excited that you're actually accessible. You're in New York, and I'm like, what? Vamos a hacer esto. Let's figure this out.
and we have one more event.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the 15th, right? It's gonna be a YouTube channel interview where we're gonna do an art activity and we're gonna talk about the book, I think.
Yeah.
I have one small question, and this is something that maybe you can offer to the families.
Yeah.
You've already talked a little bit about how you were thinking about the way that kids read the book, but are there any tips and tricks that you would give for families who are reading this to their young ones who are exploring the book on their own so they can take that home with them? And I encourage you to say this in whichever language you think is most appropriate.
That's a good question. My daughter's back there, and we read every night. Bella, do we read every night?
She nodded.
So one of the main things that I try to do with my daughter is whenever we're reading, I try to be as animated as possible to bring the story to life. So I do the voices. I'm very emotive in the face. I do all of the things that I possibly can to engage them because we are competing with television and screens and YouTube and overstimulation that comes along with living in the city. So whenever we're reading at night, I just let it all hang out and I let myself be as weird as possible so that she is completely engaged. And then it gets to a point where we read certain books so often that she has it memorized and then she wants to read it to me. So that's how I know I've done my job. So she'll take over and she'll say this and this and this and this and this and that. The other tip I would give is to let them like turn the pages, because I was actually surprised at how much she picked up the first time I read it to her, but there's a lot of repetition in the story. So we start off with the dancing trees and the howling at the moon, and it comes back later in the story, and she actually picked up on that. She was like, oh, when?
She makes her herself mighty.
Right, exactly. Toward the end, when she's making herself mighty and telling the story, she's like, I remember that, mommy. And then I was like, where do you remember it? And then she went all the way to the front of the book. So she's already making these connections, which is why I think picture books are so beautiful and just such a great tool, because they have the illustrations to also go off of. It's not just the words. So I encourage, when you're reading to your little ones, let them play with the book. You might need to buy more than one copy. So our favorite book, like books that are her favorite and my favorite, I do have more than one copy, because I have the copy that we read, and then I have the copy that we don't touch because she'll maybe read it when she's older or pass it on to her kids. But I think picture books are meant for kids, and they're going to be manipulated, they're going to be played around with, they're not going to be pristine and perfect, and that's okay. I had to learn that the hard way, though, because I was very, like, every time she would turn the page would turn, I'm like, ooh, my soul is hurting, and then I just had to get over myself and just buy another copy. I'm like, okay, this is the top shelf version, and then this is the bottom shelf, so you can do whatever you want with these.
I will suggest repetition. The younger the child, the more the book should be read. Even if you think like, again, it's necessary, part of the development. When they, like I said, they will come back to the book, and this time they're going to be looking at one information specifically, right? And that's why picture books have images, because they also can remember parts of the story by visual learners. Or the younger they are, the more they enjoy pictures and colors.
Yeah, good question.
You mentioned that you knew at 7 years old that you wanted to be a writer, but can you just share a little bit more of what grasped your attention, or what kind of transpired, like, you know, in your life that made you want to write and have this be your career as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So my grandmother, who is the grandmother in this book, was the best storyteller in the world. She could captivate an entire block. Everybody knew her. Everyone will come over to her house to break bread and to chismear and to listen to her stories and to laugh and cry and do all the things that she would have you just feel when she was telling stories. And I remember thinking, like, that is so cool. You know, you can come to our house and leave just like full, but not just like food wise, but like she fed your soul when she told stories. And I just thought that was amazing. I want to be just like my grandma. But my grandma, you know, she grew up in the Dominican Republic. She had a second grade education. She taught herself how to read and write by memorizing scripture from church. Wepa, that's a good one. He knew what I was talking about, but feeling full. Yeah. Feeling full. But, you know, her reach was just her block. And so for me, I thought, as an author, I could have a bigger reach. And it's really exciting to, like, see and get tagged and post of, like, my book in California and Washington and Texas and Florida, and, like, seeing the international reach. I remember the first time a friend of mine lives in Canada. She went to her local library in Canada and was like, guess what? I found your book at my library. And just seeing that, like, the reach was just really exciting to me, because my grandmother's legacy was one of love and bringing community together. And so to be able to amplify her legacy by writing our stories down is just the coolest feeling ever and the biggest honor. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be just like my grandma, but I wanted to take her stories to a broad audience.
Are we
Good?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we finish, sorry, I have to give you a present. Don't cry.
Ay, mujer, I can't
No,
promise. I can't
Not
promise.
honest.
I can't promise. You're so sweet. Thank you. Look, I haven't even opened it yet, and my voice is already cracking. Oh, man. Yo no te traje nada.
Espérate.
Oh, ahí está.
No está para tu bebé. baby shower is.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yo quiero uno.
This is a version of your favorite picture, which I didn't know it was your favorite.
That's my favorite too.
It's your favorite too.
Yeah.
No, when I saw it, like when Jessica sent it to me, I cried. I was like, oh my gosh, like you nailed it. You did it. So.
Yeah, every time she said, Alicia cried, I'm like, why is she beautiful?
My husband knows I'm the crier. I'm like all the emotion in the relationship.
I said, like, is it a good cry or a bad cry?
It's a good cry. It's a good cry. It's a good cry. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's just so cool.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Round of applause.
And thank all of you for coming. Oh, gracias. Sí, mejor porque la mano no tengo.
Yes, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you for sharing your beautiful story. You can pick a copy here in either English or Spanish, or both.
Aquí.
And let people know that we have more copies here.
And we can find them.
Yes, and we can sign them. Since I know you have to go to your baby shower.
That's okay. We have time. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you all for coming. Enjoy this. The shop is open, so no one has to leave.
We're not kicking you out.
No one's being kicked out. We might move things around a little bit, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Beautiful
having us.
books. Also, I just want to say, paintings make for such timeless illustrations. They really can be enjoyed, across a wide range. I really appreciate these guys.
Like now I'm gonna click. Now I'm gonna look for it when I get out.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.